Hey, morning everyone. Hope you guys are doing well. Le- I think the microphone might not be working super well, but just let me know if it's fine. And hope you guys are doing well today. Eamon, yeah, that's unfortunate. Enzo, hello. DCL and Mavididi or Vardy and McNeil. I'd probably actually prefer. hmm, I'd probably still prefer DCL and actually I'd probably prefer Vardy and McNeil. I just think that Steve Cooper is a bit weird of a manager. We know that the minutes can always be quite shaky with him because he does change his mind quite often. I do like Mavididi and DCL more, but then I'm just trying to think about their minutes in the medium term. And then I actually think Vardy's minutes might be better than Mavididi's. But yeah, that's a pretty close call. JP says he's got Gabriel TAA. Let me read this correctly. So Gabriel TAA, Robinson, Mosquera, Barco. I mean, I guess if you're working with that sort of budget and you need a 4.5, there aren't that many good defenders this week. I wouldn't play Robinson though. I do think a transfer is actually quite worth it. Um, Colwell technically is a good fixture, but I don't think it's just the one that you really want. Maybe Van de Ven could work quite a bit because you're actually looking for someone who you'd play over the next 5 game weeks potentially. If you're comfortable, for example, with him, I guess not being necessarily injury prone. There's also Leaf Davis. I mean, his fixture this week isn't amazing. It's West Ham away. You could go for a Brentford defender as well. So maybe like Van den Berg, if you really wanted to go there and just continue to spend like 4.0 on defenders. But yeah, I mean, Colwell probably has the best 4.5 fixture this game week, right? Below that sort of Lewis price. But I'm not even sure 100% if Lewis is going to start. So yeah, I think that's something to think about. All right. Other couple chat messages. Benching headache. Pick two to start from Rogers, Madison, DCL, TAA. I think I'd actually start Madison and Trent personally. It is a pretty close call though. I think I would start Trent in all cases. You could probably start any of Madison, DCL, Rogers. I think I'd lean just about to DCL or Madison, maybe. Honestly, Rogers is so close there. I would definitely play Trent in that situation. But the last pick there, I'd probably just go Madison because I think Madison's ownership is extremely low. So I would take the slight risk there, I suppose, of just playing Madison. Gautam says I have a bench of Wood, Greaves, and Aina, and have Diaz and Lewis starting. You're planning for Foden and Porro next game week with 2 free transfers. I mean, I think it is a good move. Although obviously I would love to have Foden now, if that makes sense. But your bench is just your bench, so it's not really a huge problem that you're playing those players on the bench. And my only thing is, okay, if we get a leak that Diaz doesn't start, excuse me, you're probably minded to go to Wood, but then actually would it make sense to potentially consider a hit to Foden because it's not like a great Wood week, and it could be a decent chance to actually capitalize on a Foden leak on the other side. Obviously, that's going to take a little bit of guesswork and potential leaks going your direction. So you wouldn't want to take a hit, but just considering if you have a hit loaded, I think it actually makes sense if you have the leaks. Louis says, oh, hey, Fran. Yep, sorry, I actually answered that benching headache. Keymaker, double Arsenal defense or attack. I actually, on a wild card, I don't really see myself going triple Arsenal at all. I think I would only stick to double Arsenal. Because you have to admit, one good game is gone in terms of the fixture run, and then I probably would actually want to own slightly more Spurs picks. So that's that. Good evening, Nils. Start Mavididi or DCL. I'd probably play Mavididi, actually. I still think in the short term his minutes are really good. Where am I? I'm here now, rolled. Saka out for Palmer this week. I don't really think that's really worth a move. I think Saka actually has probably a better fixture than Palmer. I mean, if we're being honest, irrespective of how the two players play. So yeah, I wouldn't take Saka out for Palmer. I'm not aware of an Arsenal fight. I mean, like, even if Arsenal were to win 5-6-0, it's not necessarily the case that the triple Arsenal asset that you go with is going to work out as well as it would have, if that makes sense. Because you also have to think, okay, in 2 weeks' time, you've got triple Man City to consider versus Southampton as well. You have ultimately a very good run of games, like 5 in a row from Tottenham, whereas actually you'd still be owning a lot of these Arsenal picks heading into 8, 9, 10, which is not exactly a great run of games for Arsenal, or rather 9, 10, 11. Any Man City news? I don't think so, no. I'd probably play Calvert-Lewin over Lewis. FPL Uproar says, hi, Fran. Bench Rodgers, Wood, or Diaz. I would play Diaz for now and then wait for a Liverpool leak. And then in that case, obviously bench Diaz 100% if he's leaked to be benched, but then bench Wood otherwise, if that makes sense. So if you're taking the assumption that Diaz starts again, I just bench Wood. Is Foden a better short-term option, let's say, until game week 12? Yeah, 100%. The only reason why I'm not on someone like Foden is because I have triple Man City. Vandenberg's minutes actually seem really good, Rekek, so I actually would recommend him. Is it mad to captain and Mbumo? You really need to rank up. You're at 5 mil. I mean, I still think it makes sense to go with stronger captains for now. Like, being at 5 mil is not ideal now, but your rank can change very quickly without having to go that crazy for captaincies. It's not that crazy in the sense that it's a poor Mbumo game. It's actually a really good Mbumo game, but I hope that makes sense. What's the triple Spurs assets you'd have? I mean, ideally this week, I think I'd go Johnson, Porro, and I'd probably go Solanke. But next week, you might actually want to go Sun, right? So I like the idea of people going on with Saka on the wild card and then actually having a route towards Sun in the next game week. That could work out really well. Whereas I'm not so fond of, let's say, going for Havertz. I do understand wanting to go Gabriel and wanting to go Raya, though, right, with Saka, because it seems like Raya is a goalkeeper that you'd still prefer, for example, when the fixtures get tougher. So it's actually okay. As far as, let's say, Gabriel, I mean, he just seems like an absolute lethal threat. Akil, thank you for the super chat. Sell Matoma for a free to Johnson or McNeil. I'd take the chance to go Johnson, personally. Am I on a wild card? Nope. Good morning, Fad. In relation to defenders, are there any defenders that are currently going under the radar? I mean, people were really upset that Nuri wasn't on the cheat sheet, but I'm not really fussed about it in that sort of direction. Sorry, I was actually reading an article about how it might be the case that this is a John Duran start. But going back to the defender's point, I do think Leif Davis is a bit underrated because I think people think, okay, he's an Ipswich defender. There's no value there, but actually he's had extremely good underlying stats. And I don't think Ipswich have been as poor as probably a lot of teams or a lot of people expected, which is a positive when the fixtures line up that well. Should I get Savio out? I probably wouldn't. I've seen a couple predicted lineups for Man City, and it seems like he's in them, but he could obviously get benched for something like Bernardo right wing. So, yeah, bit of a tough situation there, I would say, but I wouldn't take Savio out until you get a leak in the opposite direction. Simon says, and thank you for the super chat, Simon. He's got 2 free transfers, Wood and Solanke to Jackson and Calvert-Lewin. I'm not sure why you'd want to get rid of Solanke personally. I think Jackson has a better fixture than Solanke, arguably this week only. But then after that, it's really, really worse. So yeah, I'm not sure if I would take the. I'm not sure if I would take that sort of chance. I personally would actually just go and roll really with the type of team structure you have. I wouldn't really be going for Jackson any week after this, but then Solanke, as I said, just has a better run of 5 games, so there's really no need to move off of him. Yukil, apologies if I mispronounced that. Thank you for the super chat as well. Thank you for your first super chat. Good morning. Start Rodgers or McNeil? I'd probably start Rodgers. Yeah, actually, a couple of people with that question, Philip as well. As far as Smith Rowe versus Wood, I'd start Wood. I mean, it's still better to face Chelsea, in my opinion, than Man City away. And I think in most cases, I'd prefer being a striker as well. Hey, Fran, we have the same team, but you don't have enough money to buy Palmer. Yeah, I mean, I think you could just keep Bruno and Trent if you had the same team previously. Or you can just go for Brennan Johnson if you really want to get rid of Bruno. Give me a player to replace Diaz for this round. I think if you can move up to Foden, I would do it. If you want to move down, I think I'd probably just go to Brennan Johnson. Or maybe Bowen if you're really feeling a punt that direction. Yeah, those would be my transfer plans if I still had Bruno as well. I would actually roll in my personal opinion. Had to get a cheaper defense due to missing price rises to get Palmer. Thoughts on Gabriel, Lewis, Konsa, Dunk, Robinson? I think that's a strong defense. I don't love Robinson for the interim, right? Just generally speaking, the Fulham games are actually pretty tough. But they've made some defensive improvements this year, I would say. A lot of team strength models have shown a bit of a positive movement that direction. This isn't a wildcard team, no. I've already explained the transfer plans, mate. So, yeah. And please stop spamming the chat. Eze to Johnson for -4. I don't think it's really worth a -4, unfortunately. DCL or Diaz? I'd probably look. I'd play DCL if it seems like Diaz is leaked. In the meantime, I guess I'd just play Diaz. What's new on my team? The move was really Bruno for a hit to Palmer. Obviously not ideal, and then Trent out as well for Leif Davis. Is Timber playing? I'm really not sure. I mean, we didn't get any news from Arteta on Timber, so it's hard to really say like what's going on with him. I know the news that we've gotten so far apparently is that Jota seems available to start. You know, if that helps anyone. Would you start Savia if you owned over Rodgers? I probably would take the punt. Yeah, I probably would. Is Diaz benched? Honestly, I'm not sure. I would say it seems like a bit of a 50-50. Because you can make the argument that he's the best left winger that the club has. He would still start most games. But at the same time, we've seen some Gakpo starts in UCL midweek games, which led towards a very likely Luis Diaz start. Despite Gakpo, for example, playing well in the previous UCL match. This time around, we saw Luis Diaz play for a much weaker match. I would probably actually, if you wanted to play safer, I think that the way to go is just actually benching Luis Diaz or selling him. But the easiest way to play is just simply waiting for a potential leak as well. Charlie says, is it dumb going Saka captain over Holland? No, I don't think it's dumb at all. I personally just, I guess I'm not that feeling that brave this weekend, I suppose, if that makes sense. It's a very good captaincy, that's true. But I still think it's very, very close between the two. So there's no absolute need at all to sort of go against that. But thank you for being a member for 6 months. Should I replace TAA with Calafiori or Guardiola? No, I would keep Trent Alexander-Arnold. I think Trent's a really good player this week still, particularly versus Crystal Palace away. You could reconsider moving away from Trent in the future if you want, probably next game week. But I wouldn't do it this one unless, for example, like, in my case, I wouldn't have done the move if I knew Bruno was going to get the appeal, right? And then when it comes back to, let's say, my team, I'm not really worried about it now because I've already made the move. But I wouldn't do it now, is all I'm trying to say. Saka's never scored a PL hat trick. Yeah, but the thing is, Saka doesn't need to score a PL hat trick to do well, if that makes sense. Or are you saying that because he's never scored a PL hat trick that he'll... Like, are you saying he's never scored a PL hat trick, therefore he could? Or are you saying he's never scored a PL hat trick, therefore he can't? Because I guess Palmer's never scored a Premier League poker, right? And he did. So Luis Diaz or Rodgers? I think, yeah, with most Diaz questions, I'd probably bench him for now. For most people. That if you're asking me for my intuition, that's what I would say. Am I full captaining Watkins despite having Salah? Not really, no. I think they're actually pretty close in terms of captaincy if those are the two options you're picking from. Ghostwin says, wildcard this week. Keep Havertz to replace with Holland next week. I would get Holland this week, 100%. I think that's an easy decision for me. Julian says, start Konsa or Dunk. I'd probably start Konsa 100%. It's Man United at home, which is so much better of a fixture than Tottenham at home. Tottenham actually look like a very competent team on both ends of the pitch. So, yeah, I would definitely do that. Do you think it's too early to get Foden? No, not really, actually. I think this is the best time to get Foden, ideally, right? Because you just jump on what is a good run of games for Foden, as opposed to, let's say, jumping on Foden immediately on the best fixture possible, but then actually missing out on two really good games in the interim. Guardiola or Lewis or just Diaz bench? I'd probably, with Lewis, there's a bit of risk there too, right? So I would actually probably play Diaz over Lewis, maybe. Fran, your opinion on Robertson starting? He should be starting, in my opinion. Because Robertson was also subbed off very, very early, right? And we know that sort of, I think at his kind of age, it makes sense, that sort of substitution. Whereas obviously Luis Diaz is always going to be a 70-minute sub for Gakpo. So I don't think that was really an indication of anything. Do you think Foden is a minutes risk once KDB is fit? Not, I mean, slightly, of course. I mean, there's only 2-3 positions that we can sort of see him appear in for this Man City team week to week. Foden, that is. So yeah, I mean, it's going to be a slight minutes risk, but I still think that on most weekends, we should be starting to see Foden more. Start Rodgers or Eze? I'd start Rodgers. Conrad says, Palmer or Foden? I would actually go with Foden in the interim if you had the opportunity to do so. I mean, I'm obviously tripled up on Man City, so I don't have that optionality. Palmer, Holland cap? I would go with Holland. I mean, I've got Holland myself, so yeah. Start Rodgers or Wood? I'd definitely start Rodgers. I would just take the home game here. Wood or Konate to start? In this case, I'd definitely just start Konate, actually. Semenyo or Palmer? I mean, definitely Palmer in a week like this. Holland, Cap, or Saka? I think Saka is better if you want to take that sort of risk, if that makes sense. And you're pretty confident, let's say, in the minutes of someone like Saka this week to compete against the Haaland captaincy. But start Robertson or Johnson? I'd definitely start Johnson if that's Brennan Johnson. Start Robertson or Johnson? Yep, answer that question already. Start Wood over Diaz. It's not great, is it? I think I would just in a situation like that, I would take the chance just to sell Diaz. You don't even necessarily need to go to Madison. Like you could just go Brennan Johnson as well. Any Diaz news? It's look from one of the leading Liverpool leakers. It seems like there's a lot of uncertainty there. So yeah, unfortunately, it's not great. I don't think we have any like confirmed leakers. Basically, that's the slight problem that I'm seeing. So Johnson rose yesterday, Van de Ven rose, Rogers rose, Martinelli rose. Interesting. Is Palmer close to a rise? Oh, it seems like Palmer might rise tonight. Okay. Havertz, Mbumo, Sanchez, Vardy, Howard, Bellis, Twanzebe as well. Interesting. I guess that's a lot of wild cards as well. Trent and Diaz to Ait Nuri and Palmer. Gustav's question is, generally, if you have two free transfers, I don't mind the move. But one thing I would say is, if you could go for a Foden type of move, I would also consider that highly as well. And I'm not sure if I would take a hit for Palmer. Like honestly, in my position, I would not be taking a hit for Palmer. But I guess Diaz could also be benched. So maybe lock in a move like that if you find out that Diaz is benched and you're comfortable going without Trent, because Trent is still really, really good, right? So he's a great player that you're losing out in that situation. Charlie says, is it dumb going Saka captain over Holland? I don't think so. And sorry, I actually missed that super chat, Charlie. That's really my bad. But I don't think it's bad. Actually, I did think I answered that one, actually. So yeah, I think definitely in that case, it's not bad. Otto Ferdinand as well. I think I actually missed yours, though. Start 3 out of Rogers, Vardy, Carvalho, Semenyo. I think I would actually consider benching Rogers in that situation, just because he's probably the highest owned one. And actually, all the other picks have really good fixtures, like either a good home fixture or a good matchup anyways. And I'd take that chance to play the rest. Play Lewis or Calvert-Lewin. I'd just play Calvert-Lewin, I think, just because you have a guarantee that he's going to play and start. Which two should I start out of McNeil, Rogers, and Wood? I think I'd definitely play McNeil and Rogers. Like, Wood for me is quite an easy bench this game week. Even though Chelsea have actually not kept many clean sheets and they still look somewhat poor in defense, I still take the chance to go against. Future moves, if I had known about Bruno. Monks, I think I would just roll, personally. I would just roll. But I think people who are very frustrated with Bruno, who might still own Bruno, would probably want to consider something like Brennan Johnson, potentially. Between DCL and Rogers, I'd probably go for DCL. Norbu, I actually think that jumping on Foden makes a lot of sense. Yep, as I said. What's the best replacement for Bruno? I'd say Brennan Johnson or Foden. Really depends on whether you can push up or whether you want to push down, on like in terms of price points. Who would I start of, Duran or Lewis? It seems like Duran could start. So honestly, you might want to take that chance and just go for a Duran start, potentially. Play Vandenberg or second city defender. I would probably, if you think that there's doubts around the second city defender, I'd just play the second city defender. But otherwise, I'll just play Vandenberg. You've got Guardiola starting, but should I start Colwell or Lewis? I'd actually probably start Colwell over Lewis because I think there's that guarantee. There's no risk of a Lewis benching that you have to deal with when you play Colwell this week, and Colwell's very, very strong. In my case, I think Leif Davis is not quite as strong as Colwell, so I'm sort of still taking that leap of faith, I suppose. Dimitri's, thank you for the super chat. Would DCL Rogers start 2? I would start DCL and Rogers. I would just start the 2 players with the home fixtures in a good opportunity as well, because it's like Chelsea away is still going to be a tough match for Nottingham Forest. Diaz starts. I don't see anything of the sort. I don't think Watkins is a minutes risk at all. I mean, is he sometimes going to be a 70, maybe 75-minute substitution? Yes, but it's more likely that he plays close to like 85, 90 from what we've seen this season, especially now that he's pretty close to being fully match fit. So, yeah. Give me one sec, actually. I'm gonna quickly have a look for if we have potential leaks. All right, back to chat questions. Start Dollar or Phase? I think I'd start Phase 100%. I'd start Phase. This just seems like a poor Dallo fixture ultimately, right? You're coming into some pretty horrible run of form. You're away from home versus Aston Villa, who had a great performance and generally played well this season. So like on underlying stats, have United been poor? Yes. Have Leicester been even worse? True. But at least Leicester at home, which I think is quite significant. Um, and yeah, I guess it's a competition as well between Aston Villa firing power versus Bournemouth. Hope you're doing well. Really lost with the team. Thank you, Dr. Yazan, for the super chat. Can you please check Discord and tell me what would you do if it was my team? Yeah, I can definitely do that. Um, so Dr. Yazan, I think your lineup, the way that I see it, I'd probably play Gabriel, Porro, and Lewis and still take that chance because unfortunately the other defenders just don't have a good game. In the midfield, you've got finally like a pretty weak midfield. So I think the issue, I guess, is the 3-4-3 aspect of things. It seems like you could actually go Fabio Carvalho from Wolves, but I'd love to have Mbumo on this team if I could. In your case, I guess you won't be going for Mbumo necessarily this game week. I think what I would do is do Winks to Fabio Carvalho, and then that gives you still a pretty strong team, right? Because you play Havertz, Haaland, Vardy, you play Saka, Rogers, Salah, and Carvalho, and then you play Porro, Gabriel, Lewis, and you probably play Mazraoui first bench in terms of defense, and then Hard Bellis after that. But your true first bench, I guess, is Smith Rowe. So I think that's the team that I would go for. You were thinking of getting Palmer actually by taking out Salah. I don't think it's really worth taking a hit to Palmer necessarily. Because, for example, I've gone out of Bruno to Palmer, right? So that's quite a big difference to going out of Salah to let's say, Palmer. And taking out Vardy as well, I don't think is really worth it. I don't love Smith Rowe this week, so I think I would just address the weakest spot in your team. And you can still keep Smith Rowe because it's not like every fixture is going to be Man City away. And he's actually been pretty decent so far. So why not just go out of Winks, move into Carvalho? You have a strong sort of high depth team, and then actually just make that move. All right, back to questions. Ashton says Havertz captain instead of Holland. Savio start. From seeing some of the predicted lineups from Man City, it seems like it seems like there's a lot of variations basically with let's say Savio starting, because obviously Bernardo's been rested for the last previous match, so it's very likely that he could play. I'm not super certain on that, so I'd say that there are more instances. I'd say 60% chance that Savio starts. I really have no full confidence on that. But then going back to your point, I wouldn't really have its captain either. I'd just go for Holland in the meantime. Back to chat questions. Protagonist: who would you captain between Saka, Palmer, Holland? I think Holland and Saka are equal, but I think it's a question of whether you want to take risk. Not necessarily now that do I want to take it. I can still consider it. But I think they're very equal, so I don't really mind going either way. It just comes down to your risk preference on this game week. And then Palmer, I do think is a bit behind both, so I'm not really considering Palmer. But if you think Palmer is him, then he's very close as well. He's probably the third best captaincy, and you've mentioned all three. Luke says, hi, Fran. Would you start out of Lewis, Vandenberg, and Porro? I'd probably start Vandenberg just because of confidence over minutes. But yeah, Lewis is probably the better pick if you really think that Lewis is going to start. So that hopefully helps. Eze to Johnson or Trossard. I like Johnson a bit more as a move Anonis because of the Knicks 5 fixtures being really, really good for Tottenham. Any Diaz update? Unfortunately, we don't have any seemingly Diaz updates. Dunk, bench, one or Dallo. I'd probably bench Dunk, to be honest, in this situation. Like, it's actually close, actually. I'd probably go for Dunk, actually. I'd probably play Dunk. Yeah, I'd probably play Dunk. A couple other questions in chat. Lewis or Rogers? I'd play Rogers. Just guaranteed minutes there. At least a start. Rico start. I'm not sure, but I'm gonna punt that he does. Diaz or Savio to start. I think Diaz is unlikely to start. That's my personal opinion. Bit of a 50-50, but I would go with Gakpo. With Savio, I'd say 60% chance that he starts. Still should be a game that he can start in, and I wouldn't have many like issues with him. I mean, if you have a lot of questions, you can try and share them, and I can try and answer most of them. Start Diesel or Rogers? I'd probably go with Rogers right now. It seems like the spread market sort of movements have also been leaning towards Aston Villa movements, whereas Everton have pretty much stayed flat. So I kind of like that kind of last minute confidence in Aston Villa. Lewis starts. Honestly, I'm unsure about it, but I'm going to take the punt that he does. Keep Watkins or sell him and share the funds. I think you can keep Watkins for now. Unless you really want to make a move to, let's say, someone else, the captain, that sort of thing. TA and Diaz for Luke Davis and Foden for -4. I mean, I actually don't mind that, JW, personally. But I would only do that move if we really got the full confirmation that Diaz was benched, because I assume that you'd also have a bit of rotation. My opinion for Ederson, I mean, he's a good pick. He's a Man City defender. Long-term Gusto or Lewis, I'd still say Lewis, because Gusto, unfortunately, is he still dealing with sort of injury-related issues, and obviously the fixture run in the short term is pretty poor, and the medium term for Chelsea. And then, yeah, ultimately it's a question of, do I think Lewis will continue to get good starts? Probably yes, and he can still be a really good pick. Do you think Brennan Johnson is a better replacement than Luis Diaz for Bruno? Yeah, I think so. Because you're also saving a lot of money by going for Brennan Johnson, right? Which there's a lot of added value to that in some respects. Gusto's back. True, but then Reece James, I guess, will also come back eventually. But what I'm saying is that the short-term fixtures aren't great for Chelsea. Maybe after this game week. Vandenberg or Robinson, I'd definitely play Vandenberg. Update on Diaz. We have literally... I've not seen any Liverpool leaks whatsoever. I've seen Curtis Jones starts. Dibbling or Winks, I would actually just play. I'd probably play Winks maybe. Just got here, no leaks, unfortunately. Lars, Madison or Brennan. I would actually prefer Madison. I'm sorry, I'd prefer Brennan Johnson actually, because I do think that he is, compared to, let's say, someone like Madison who's a bit more creative. Brennan Johnson has really, really good underlying stats, but they're very favored towards expected goals. And obviously, there's a lot of value to getting an attacker there. And because of the lack of depth that, let's say, Spurs have, there's a lot of good reasons to do that. Dr. Yazan Abdulaziz, I actually would consider wildcarding, yeah, in your situation. But keep in mind, of course, I guess you wouldn't have the international break to sort of make major moves with your team. And I just get the feeling that, unfortunately, when you're going for wildcards, for example, if you haven't been, let's say, super set on the idea in the first place, then probably best to not go for it, if that makes sense, because you're also not capitalizing the most out of price rises and falls in the early parts of the season. But I think your team is actually going to be really fine, honestly, without a wild card if you just go for Fabio Carvalho. Because you'd have a Wolves at home fixture from a really good budget attacker. And then actually you can still keep someone like Smith Rowe for the future games. Tamara says, and thank you for the super chat, no good bench. Smith Rowe to start. João Pedro out for hit. 0.1 in bank. Got Wood. Haaland, Salatier, Guardiola, Roger, Gabriel. No wild card. I mean, if you have João Pedro playing this week, right? Or you still have João Pedro and you're going to play Smith Rowe, I think that's you probably have to take a hit to get into a certain player, right? And you also have Wood, who doesn't necessarily have a great game. I would consider wildcarding in this situation because I feel like you do have a slightly weaker team for this game week. But it's also up to what your plans are. If you really do want to take a hit for João Pedro, I guess, are you saying that you need to take a hit for João Pedro if you want to move into, let's say, someone of a more interesting position like Solanke? Or what's the kind of point there? Are you saying that any transfer out for João Pedro is going to be for a hit? Because unfortunately, then it's not really worth a hit, I would say, because there's no budget forwards like outside of Delap that you can really go to with 0.1 in the bank. So it probably actually points towards you just starting Smith Rowe if you don't want a wild card, or you wild card. I hope, excuse me, I hope that makes sense. Whoa, apparently. So there's actually a pretty reliable Liverpool content creator, it seems, and their guess for a lineup had actually all they said was Jota starts. I can't see anything about Luis Diaz. No, can't see anything about Luis Diaz. Trying to look for the Liverpool leaks, but I can't see anything, guys. Sorry. You can't afford Palmer, poor you, but I think that's fine. You can still go for Johnson, the likes of Foden as well, like in multiple team structures. So you don't really like. I would not recommend everyone to take a hit to Palmer. Like, it doesn't make sense, especially if the team structure doesn't allow for it. Why have I picked both Brentford keepers? Just in the in the situation where we get a bit of uncertainty. Who's saying Diaz is bench, Maka? Can you just let me know the source? Pick two of these, please, Fran. Rukov says Rogers, McNeil, Wood. I'd go Rogers, McNeil easily. Is Foden better pick than this week than Palmer? No, I think Palmer's a better pick this week. But over the next 3 weeks, I actually think that Foden's probably a better pick. Just by a bit. Maybe actually over the next three, I could disagree. Maybe Foden. Nah, Foden probably is genuinely better over the next three. Yeah, I'd say so. It's pretty close, but I'd say so. Apparently, people are. Yep, I've seen some people now saying that Diaz is benched. Luis Diaz is not starting. FPL mate saying that Luis Diaz is not starting. I mean, he doesn't. He's gonna put his body on the line. Jones is apparently starting as well, and Luis Diaz is benched. So yeah, if you guys own Luis Diaz, I would take the chance to just go Foden. Leave the leaks aside. Look, we actually have a leak, so I would just go Foden. Yeah, 100% I'd go Foden. Like if you own Diaz, I once again similar to the Bruno situation, I would consider Brennan Johnson. I would consider Foden. OP Talent, thank you for the super chat. Play two of Lewis Rogers as a starting Guardiola. I'd probably play Rogers in that situation. Sock Dembumo for a -4. I don't think that's worth the -4 at all. Start Savio Rogers. I would start I would start Savio. Should I start Colwell over Lewis? Yeah, I think that's worth it. Because we don't know if Lewis is going to start. I don't see any leaks about Lewis. Yeah, the full Liverpool lineup has been leaked. I'll just say it to you guys now. Allison, Trent, Konate, Virgil, Robertson. So, as I said, Robertson should be fine. Gravenberch, McAllister, Jones, and then Salah, Gakpo, Jota. So it seems like Sobo has picked up a knock and maybe he's benched or he's out of the squad completely. But it's a Gakpo start. Foden news. I can't see any Man City news, but we have Liverpool news. I do think I'm very confident that Foden should start. So yeah, if you've got that chance, I would do it. Porro to Van de Ven, so you can get funds for JP to Solanke. I don't mind it so much, Sharaz. But I wouldn't do it for a hit, right? If it's two free transfers, I'll take it. Luis Diaz is benched. And actually, I will just pin that. I don't think Diaz is starting. I don't see how every Liverpool leaker could get it completely wrong, personally. So I do think Diaz is benched. Bench one of Konsa, Robertson, Lewis, Rogers, Delap, or Luis Diaz. He's not going to play. I mean, I'd bench Luis Diaz easily in this situation. You really don't think we're good at Rico is starting, but you don't. Yeah, but Philip, I've already read that post, and I can tell you that the source of the predictions don't even come from the source of the predictions. And that person predicting is now predicting a Lewis start, if that helps you. Jay Wavy says, hey, Fran, Bruno to Gordon or Bruno to John. I would actually go Johnson if you want to make a move out of Bruno. Kim says, you're going to roll. We'll get three free transfers. Perfect. You never know what will happen. Yeah. I think, look, rolling it is actually an extremely underrated move anyways in FPL. So go for it. Dream Brother says, good luck, Fran. Really tempted to Saka captain Rico Lewis. Oh, you're tempting me, my friend. Peter Kennedy as well. I apologize for missing a super chat. And also Nelson Fandela. So starting with Peter's super chat, I would definitely consider bringing in Foden for Savio. Yes, just because actually there's just upside naturally to moving from Savio to Foden. So I would agree. True Fandela says, you got Diaz and Rico bench, order Dibbling, Greaves, Mikolenko. I would play Rico over Diaz right now, but I guess you're playing both. I mean, maybe you need to make a free transfer. I mean, do you have free transfers? Do you have, hits that you could consider? OP Talent says, okay, Rogers to start, but one to play Lewis or Eze. I'd take the chance to go Lewis personally. The last thing I'm actually considering for my team is, do I do a last minute Saka captaincy? All right, I'm gonna pull it. I'm gonna pull this now. I'm gonna pull this now. Are we doing a Saka cap? The leaks is that Luis Diaz and Sobber are benched. I can't see any Man City news whatsoever. Diaz is not starting. You can have a look at my pinned message, basically. Hub suggests Haaland captain for you, then Palmer vice, Osaka's third choice. Interesting, yeah. Start Savio Rogers. I'd probably start Savio. ESR Diaz to start. I would go ESR because Diaz is benched, right? So you're not going to expect too much coming off the bench. Saka will play few minutes. What makes you think he'll play few minutes? All right, the poll's pretty clear. I think half of you guys do think that I should stick with Haaland, so I'll probably keep it. No news on Lewis. Not that I could see. Bowen captain. Is that really where we're going, human? That would be pretty fun. Good luck to you if you're doing it. If Bowen was actually on penalties, I think I'd actually consider something like that. Do we get a cold or hot Palmer? Is either of them bad? I suppose. Because people, you know, when you use cold to describe someone, it's not usually a positive. But when you use cold to describe cold Palmer, it's a positive. So what is a hot Palmer? Start DCL or Rogers. I'd probably go Rogers and just lean for the, I guess, better team gap between the two. Liverpool news. The Liverpool news is Diaz and Sobor are benched. Both good. Exactly. Hello, Fran. What do you think about playing back for Saliba, Guardiola, Van de Ven, Vandenberg, and bench Luis Diaz? I think that's a good. I think that's good. I think I would do that. Colwell, Lewis. I'd probably try to reduce the amount of risk possible and probably just go with Colwell on a week like this. Sweaty Palmer. Start Collins or Van de Ven. Not start Collins. It's very close though. Hello, Fran. What do you think about playing back four? I think I'm okay with it, Bohemian. So just go for it. Salah out for Saka. If you want, right? Because there actually are some slightly poorer Saka games after this, but this is a nice week, I guess, intuitively to do so. If you can make another move on top of that, then I can understand, you know, getting some value gain and then sort of moving things around. I don't think we have like a predicted Man City lineup, by the way, that's like confirmed or like an actual leak. So there's no Man City leaks. Mal, thank you so much for being a member for 12 months. Really appreciate it. Hope you're doing well. Do you think Foden starts? I do think Foden starts. Diaz for Martinelli actually seems like it could make sense for the short term sort of punt. I do also like Brennan Johnson, as I said, just because the wider fixtures are nicer. Also, Ferdinand, thank you for the super chat. Let's see. Bench one, Rogers, Semenyo, Carvalho, and Vardy. No Mbumo. Yeah, I would just bench. Tough one. I would bench Rogers, as I said, just because you probably want to play a little bit with the risks there, at least not with something as major as captaincy. But here it feels okay if you just go for the players with strong games, right? Like Vardy has a home fixture, so does Carvalho. Semenyo is probably just an extremely high expected goal involvement producing pick and with a good fixture as well on the other side. So I quite like going for them. The one player that I don't mind benching is Vardy, but it comes back to what you want. True Fandela says Trent plus Diaz out for Porro / cheaper defender plus Foden. I think that makes a lot of sense personally, because of course you're going out of Diaz this week where you just need some money in the bank and you need to just get someone better, right? Foden does seem really fun. Hello mate. Salah for captain. I probably wouldn't go Salah for captain, but I'm gonna have to put you in timeout because we don't do emojis on the deadline because that just spams the chat. Good luck to everyone this game. We've got 4 minutes left as well. So yeah, choose wisely. Oh, my countdown timer wasn't actually working properly. It seems like. Hopefully now it's fixed. Please, Fran, last minute decision. Who would you start out of Lewis, Porro, Rogers? I'd just start Rogers. I mean, you kind of feel like he's got the safety and the guarantee of a start. So I think why not just go there? Start Lewis or DCL? I'd start DCL just for the safety. For a hit, I mean, you were going to play Diaz anyways, right? You don't really want to be playing Diaz off the bench. So I would say that Diaz off the bench is actually comparable. So I would just go Foden. Will Ferguson start? I'm not sure, to be honest. I think it's likely that we'll see Welbeck again. Does Foden start? I don't have a leak on Foden starting, but I think that I would predict him to start. Mavididi or Wood? I'd go Mavididi here and just take the better fixture in this case. Semenyo or Mbumo for this game week? Definitely Mbumo, 100%. Definitely Mbumo. Is Diaz going to play? I mean, he's probably going to come off the bench, but Diaz is not starting today, it seems like. Lewis or Konsa? I'd still probably play Lewis in this situation. Start Konsa or Munoz? I'd definitely start Konsa. I mean, Munoz is versus Liverpool, right? So you don't want to take that chance. Start Rodgers or Savio? I'd probably go Savio. Can you go Smith Rowe or Semenyo to Foden for free? I would definitely go Foden long term, yeah. Sorry, I would prefer Semenyo long term, but you need to check if your team can rotate for Semenyo 8, 9, and 10. To be honest, I would really like to play Semenyo this week, so I'm kind of surprised that... Are you going to play Semenyo this week? If so, then I would just go out of Smith Rowe. Calvert-Lewin or Vardy? I'd probably go Vardy. Rodgers or McNeil? I'd go Rodgers in this case. Bring Lewis in for Robinson? I really don't know if I don't really know if Lewis is going to start, so it's a bit of a risk there. But if you're confident about Lewis start, then yeah, I would make the move out of Robinson for now. Lewis or Van de Ven? Van de Ven's actually feels like a really safe pick. If you need a 4.5 to play the next 5 fixtures in a row, then that's your best bet. But that's it for my team, it seems like. We're going to play Lewis anyways. Dunk, and then Dibbling, Davis, then Dibbling, then Dunk is my sort of bench order. Hope you guys have a wonderful game week, and enjoy this FPL game week. Lock in, please. Who's the best? What is a Skibidi player? Silent as 8 to Saka and Foden. Not worth a -4 for me. I mean, it is... Yeah, I wouldn't do it for a -4. Because also, Saka's going to have slightly tougher games after this, so... It's something where I would actually rather go Salah and Eze next week to Son and Foden. Actually, is something that I would prefer, Jonathan. Like, I would consider that. If Son is back next week, I would actually consider using the free transfers to do that instead without a hit. Good luck, Kim, as well. All right. Thank you, everyone, for joining the stream. Really appreciate you guys for being here. If you guys like the stream, please feel free to drop a like and also subscribe if you haven't already. Hope I've answered most of your questions. As I said, best of luck this deadline. I'm probably going to log off a little bit earlier today, so we're not going to stay around to see some lineups. We kind of already know the Liverpool lineup, and that's that. So yeah, take care, goodbye, and hope you guys have a wonderful weekend.